Thanks for tuning in to ChezKritta.com. Today we have a YouTube user, ChezKritta. He is semi-opted out of the system. He's called a urban camper, I guess how you call it, right?
Yeah, urban camping. It's basically living the minimalist lifestyle, trying to take power away from the system as much as you possibly can while still keeping up your quality of life.
And so how long have you been doing this for?
It's been about 3 months now. It started as an experiment. I do enjoy it. I mean, I could go back into the apartment dwelling lifestyle, but as of right now, I find it rewarding, and it's definitely a big change. It has actually improved my quality of life.
Yeah, I remember I had an apartment and it kind of felt like monotonous. I had an upstairs apartment actually, and I'd be go buy groceries, come back, pull them upstairs, and just stay in my apartment all the time and not interact with my neighbors, and just like it's confined space.
Yeah, it really is a self-imposed prison. And you've got a landlord. I mean, if you want to go back to the feudal days of being a peasant, working the land for a king, that's basically what an apartment is. It's just a modern rendition of it.
Yeah, have you heard in New York, the mayor is making this program where they have a 300 square foot apartments there, want businesses to build?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, they're getting smaller and smaller. The average American is having to deal with less and less. And there's no mistake about the reason that the direction we're going in is because of the wage disparity. The middle class is disappearing, and that means that we're headed more towards a Soviet-style system or communist China, where you have to deal with very little, and the people at the top have a majority of everything.
Yeah, back to the YouTube, of course. For the viewers, your YouTube channel, ChezKritta, you had an older channel that I used to watch, PD Lumina. Tell us what happened with that and why you quit that and you started a new channel.
Well, I had a different philosophy on that channel, and at the time, again, I was still living in my apartment. I was really frustrated. I was not happy with life, and out of a whim, I just decided to go ahead and delete it. And I also had different principles on that channel. That channel was not about producing revenue. My new channel is. I am running ads on it. And a little bit more on markets and a little bit less on philosophy, which is what my new channel is.
And your new channel is 3 months old, you said?
It's just about 3 months. It's about 2.5 months so far.
We've been running the Crush the Street. It's about a year now. We have almost 600 subs. You have over 1,000 subscribers already. That's you do a video almost every day, and they get 500, almost 1,000 views per video. And people enjoy your videos, and I enjoy, of course, the philosophy talk and talking about these important issues. Like one of them is the Second Amendment.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that what it is there's a lot of people that feel as passionate about liberty, about the ideals of the Constitution as I do. They're not willing to say it, and I think that they're out there searching for this message, and that's what I like to bring forward. I'm not scared of saying that the government is becoming tyrannical, and it could lead to miserable living conditions for the average person. And I think a lot of people see it happening, but they're scared, they're not willing to voice their opinion. And I'm out there willing to do it. I really don't care what the consequences are, because these ideas are more important than an individual's safety.
That is exactly right. And of course, that's what the founders, we assume the founders thought, because they were going against, their George Washington and all those guys were, maybe we put them in the upper class today, and they were putting up their wealth and sacrificing, risking everything,
lives,
to
fortune,
be free.
And sacred honor. Absolutely. And they meant it. And yes, they were wealthy. And that's, I guess it's not saying much for someone like me to put it on the line, but your average millionaire, are they speaking out against the fact that we are headed towards tyranny in this country? The fact that they're creating debt slaves out of everyone? These are really important concepts going forward, and just because you have a little bit of money and the appearance of freedom doesn't mean it's not going to be taken away if you're not good stewards of your government.
Yes, and with your channel and then more people speaking out, it's just building a momentum, I see, in the whole libertarian movement. You're a libertarian, right? Your philosophy?
I would say I lean in that direction. I don't like to categorize myself with any sort of political slant, and it's just the reason for that is I can speak freely about anything, and I'm not going to tick anyone off. I hate pretty much all different types of politics, no matter what you are, and that's my philosophy.
So how long have you held this philosophy?
Well, it's been evolving. It's not something that you necessarily just have at one point. But my entire life, I have been, I guess, a self-taught constitutional scholar, and it's something that I learn, and I'm always changing my view. But the more that I see things trending towards tyranny, and I'll hit on this again and again, the more that I want to fight back against it. And I think it's a natural human tendency. It's just at what point. And so I would say that I've held this philosophy as long as I've been aware.
Question I don't think I've heard asked. Do you see a correlation as the government becomes more tyrannical? Do you see that correlated with economic decline? It seems like the more they try to control, and the less free people are, the less productive they are, and that's exactly why this country probably did so great.
It's no mystery that centralized control destroys economies and destroys cultures. You see that all throughout history. I mean, there are countless examples, and I think that that's one of the lessons that the average person doesn't pay attention to the fact that, as a government grows in power, the average lifestyle, the average prosperity of the people declines.
Switching to the economy, we got an election coming up. Do you see stagnation this year up until the election?
It's tough. I mean, there's no politician wants anything to crash on their watch. So I would say that they're going to do everything in their power, and that includes with the Federal Reserve in collusion, printing money and all this through quantitative easing, even if they don't tell you about it, to keep it from crashing. Making predictions about exactly when something will happen is very difficult, and I've been caught up in that in the past. I would say that things will probably be stable through the election. After that, I really think that there's so much uncertainty about it, but eventually, within the next couple of years, I do foresee a big event happening, like an actual economic collapse, dollar devaluation, something that there will be no denying that this is happening to every man, woman, and child in this country and around the world.
I agree. There has to be a semi-big event. I see maybe a little deflation this year, and then after the election's over, we might have another QE. Of course, it'll have a different name announced or started. But the global economy, people might be switching off of the dollar, and we're going to see that go down. If we don't have some kind of big event, they're going to have to be still policing the world and throwing our weight around to get people to still use the dollar.
Sure.
And even so, we'll have a slow decline that way.
The dollar is defended by the military. I mean, there's no question about that. As far as deflation and inflation, this is very tricky because we're not seeing it in the classic definition of the term. So you might see inflation in fuel and food costs, the things that people need, and you're still seeing deflation in the housing market and things like automobiles, and they are in decline. So it's really tough to pinpoint, and I think that gold and silver right now are kind of caught in the middle because there's no really defining an inflationary or deflationary economy with the situation that we're in. But for sure, the military power that we project around the world is the dollar is only as good as that lasts. Once that goes away, so goes the dollar.
Do you personally own gold and silver?
I do. I own a little bit of gold, mostly silver. I love silver. I think it's a great investment going forward. It just depends on what you're looking to get out of it. I think that a lot of people think that you're going to get rich by buying a little bit of silver, when in reality, you will probably protect your purchasing power better than anything else out there. And you might make a little bit of money in terms of the inflationary forces that ultimately will hit us. But I think you need to be really careful when you're looking to invest in these things and look at what your motives are and look at it realistically. Because I think a lot of people thought that silver was going to make them wealthy, when in reality, you're going to preserve your purchasing power.
Probably a lot of older investors, they want to invest in mining stocks. Lately, we've seen a decoupling in the physical price of gold and silver, and the junior miners definitely. What if you do any research on that? What do you see as the reason for that?
Well, I would say a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, or if not 3 or 4. The stock market is tricky, and nobody really knows what's going to happen with the input costs as far as miners go. Like I just mentioned, fuel is a huge input cost in the mining industry. I mean, they're breaking rocks and extracting minerals from it. So if my input cost to get an ounce of silver out of the ground is, say, $12, and my return on that, depending on what the spot market produces, is uncertain, you really don't know. And that's why I think you're seeing the established miners, I think like Barrick, Newmont, they're doing pretty well. They're really kind of toeing the line. But the junior miners, they're really underdeveloped for going forward, looking forward into the future. I mean, if the economy crashes, what is a junior mining stock going to be worth? Nothing.
And what do you see in the coming election? Obama, Romney, basically the same thing. Of course, Ron Paul, he's like halfway conceded that he can't win through these, emails to his campaign. What do you see happening at the Republican National Convention? Do you see Ron Paul just, being the Liberty Movement and admit he's out of the race, or what do you see?
Well, I'll get a little bit conspiratorial here. I love Ron Paul. I love the ideals that he stands for, but I don't believe that we are going to solve anything through the political process in this country. And I do believe that if Ron Paul were elected, something would happen to him, much like what happened to Kennedy. Now, between Obama and Romney, it's basically Obama and Obama light. Either way, I'm pretty sure that the economy is going to crash during the next presidential term. So it's tough. Who do you want as your leader? Do you want to get Romney in, who's a little bit more right-wing, and then have the economy crash on his watch? Or do you want someone like Obama in power? And also, as far as civil liberties, who is going to honor those more? Because we have some tough decisions going forward. If the system that people rely on for life support starts to break down, which one is more likely to call the military upon the people? And these are questions that I think is really important that we ask. But in terms of the political process right now going forward, I really have no interest in it. It's a wash. I mean, we're headed where we're headed regardless of whether we get either one.
If we do get a guy like Ron Paul, also Gary Johnson running on the Libertarian ticket, both of them agree on almost everything, and they say they abolish the IRS and balance the budget within 1 or 2 years. Gary Johnson says he balanced the budget the first year. We know what that would mean to entitlements. We probably see, what would we see, in your opinion? We would see riots after the entitlements are cut, the budget's cut, government workers laid off. Absolutely.
This is the problem with it. Ron Paul is giving you reality. Okay, he's telling you, look, I can fix this, but you have to trust me. And everyone else is giving you promises, hopes, and dreams. The problem with reality is painful. It is not going to be a good ride going forward. And so you've got this issue with someone like Ron Paul or Gary Johnson, which I love their ideas. It's fantastic. But if they're telling you, I'm going to take away your welfare, I'm going to cut your health care, I'm going to cut entitlements, reduce spending, which means less for the poor people, and I'm probably going to have to raise taxes at the same time, nobody is going to vote for that as long as they're looking out for their own interests. And I think that's a big part of what's really wrong with our culture right now.
Do you think, I see the movement, libertarian movement, as lately switching almost to like an anarchist movement. Do you think like a federal government is necessary? Could we just have 50 state governments without any central planning?
I think that the founding principles pretty much stated that the government's going to get where it is currently right now, regardless. Okay, every government grows to a totalitarian state, and then the people decide whether they want that government or not going forward. I think that the United States, maybe over the course of the next 10, 20 years, will probably not exist in its current form. And I think that smaller, localized government, which was originally intended, is a more efficient, a better way for the average person going forward. So it's really difficult to say. Globally, we are headed for some really, really difficult times. So who's to say that ultimately the government doesn't break apart? I mean, there has been much talk about Texas seceding from the nation. And it doesn't sound like that bad of an idea if you're living in Texas, because you have states like California and New York that are really dragging everyone else down. And so the United States going forward, we have to take a realistic look as if that's a good idea. Is that something that we want? Because what really matters is not centralized power. The federal government is not what's important. What's important is the lives and individual liberty of the people that inhabit the land. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that.
Coming up through this probably economic collapse, deflation or inflation, uncertainty. What do you see any other good investments besides gold and silver?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Again, getting back to individual liberty, I think that you need to provide for yourself and understand that there's not going to be someone riding in on a white horse when this thing starts to fall apart. So yes, there are some very good investments. For purchasing power, gold and silver. For being able to survive, I think food is an excellent investment. Arable land, land that you can farm. Firearms, personal defense is something excellent going forward. And tools. I'm talking hand tools. You know, back before gasoline was around, everything was done by hand. And the people that know those skills, that have those tools, are going to be very valuable if, in the event that oil is not able to come to U.S. shores from far-off Middle Eastern countries.
All right. It's been a good interview. Is there any additional things you want to post to our listeners?
Well, I'd like to quote Chris Martenson, where he says that the past is not going to look anything like the future. And I think that the sooner that you come to terms with that reality, the better you're going to be doing when that future eventually comes.
All right, YouTube, ChezKritta, thanks for joining us.
For more unconventional ideas, please visit crushthestreet.com.